Yeah.
You should hear the music that I hear right now. It's playing through everybody. We're live. Everybody can hear this beautiful music that I love.
Except for me.
Except for you. So, it's like the dance party that everyone's at. Alright.
I'm more accustomed to perceiving things others don't, so this is a nice change. You're the one hearing something that doesn't exist for me.
Right. That's good. How you doing?
I'm not very awake yet, but I'm all right. Mixed states again today. I'm I've got aspects of depression and mania simultaneously.
Yeah,
so
what's that like?
So it's like I have enough mania to trigger waking up too early and it firing my brain on, but then my body's still being depressed and my energy being very low. It's like midsummer, I could wake up after like 4 hours of sleep and just pop awake, be fully awake and full of energy. This isn't that. It's just cutting a few hours off of what I'm normally sleeping, but I just wake up and feel fucking tired.
Damn.
And it's kind of like I've noticed lately, it's not quite a full sub-personality, but an aspect of me. I'll just call it a sub-personality. It's as if one manic sub-personality is active, but without its usual crew. And so the other, to imagine that like a field full of cars being like the various modes I could be in, and it's like this manic part jumps into one car saying, hey, we're driving across the country. Turns it on, there's only enough gas to go 5 feet. So it jumps out and goes, all right, let's drive to Mexico. Gets in a different car, it just goes 10 feet and runs out of gas. So I have this fluttering part that wants to like manically jump from this to that, and the rest of me just isn't really going along with it.
Oh my God. So that probably creates a lot of tension.
Yeah, it's as much as I'm laughing. It can be difficult at times to have.
It's painful. It can be painful when two parts of you are like running in different directions.
Yeah, it can, but also sometimes pain's funny. Getting hit in the nuts makes people laugh. So that's sort of why I'm laughing now, is I'm laughing at myself that
way. Right. Yeah.
And so how about you? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good today, man. This has been a crazy time. It's been a crazy time. We were joking before our stream before we clicked to go live that we should name this Puppies, Sunshine and Rainbows and anything else that won't get shadow banned, because we've been noticing that there seems to be an effort to squash the average YouTuber's commentary on this current global situation we find ourselves in. And I don't even know if saying the words, COVID-19 or coronavirus will trigger the algorithm to suppress our channel or something crazy. So
yeah,
so we're just
you just burned our title by saying that.
Right.
And so on that note, anyone watching this, if you didn't see Ryan's last video about seizing or finding meaning in the chaos, or if you didn't see my last live stream about dealing with fears of death and where the world's going, go to our channel page, because those got shadow banned, or
we think
something
like that. And when we say shadow banned, we're not being, we're not talking about like a conspiracy theory. It's just that the algorithm clearly chooses what it does and doesn't promote.
Yeah, like my last one, I heard from a few people that they didn't get notifications, although some went out. But the other was I looked at the analytics, and usually in the first 24 hours, like 80% of the views come from browse features. My last video for the first 24 hours, there was 0 from browse features. And it didn't even show up on our channel page at first, but it's there now, and it's getting browser views again.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm going to give some shout outs to the folks in the chat. We've got Daniel, Gloff, Danny, Grizz. Welcome, everybody. We're glad you're here. It is great to have you all. We're really excited to be streaming today. It's been a while since Merc and I have been able to get together and do this. So Grim says, this just got shadow banned thanks to Ryan saying the no words. We probably get shadow banned for saying the word shadow banned.
I don't know, maybe.
I don't know either. But who gives a... You know, one thing you said to me the other day is what matters is that we have a kick-ass group of people that are listening, that are getting notifications, like the people in the chat right now. What's up, Wombat Rob? Hey, brother. It's so
Rob.
good to see you, man. Wow. How are you holding up during all this, man? You riding the wave of all this craziness? But you were saying how it's just to be grateful for the fact that, you know, we get to click a button and have an audience available, you know, however large or small it may be at any given moment. And I think that that's huge. That's to be able to have a community of people. It's very hard to build any sort of following on a YouTube, a Facebook, an Instagram, a Twitter, whatever it may be. And so just the sheer opportunity that we have to reach people and help as many people as possible is really cool. I hope it can continue to grow like it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to these topics that might make it so our videos don't get out to as many people, I also don't really feel like avoiding those topics either, because I know some people are worried about this shit and need to talk it through.
Right, so exactly.
I would rather still put out the content, and even if it only gets to a few people, if it actually helps a couple of them, that's worth it.
It helps the people who get to see it, and that's what matters, at least some of them. But yeah, speaking of that, it's just been a crazy time. I mean, where I live here in the Denver area, people are doing an okay job with this whole social distancing thing. It seems like some people are listening to it more than others. It seems like some people still don't really care or think it's, you know, ridiculous, or would rather life go back to normal. Of course, we'd all rather life go back to normal, but are disregarding the threat at hand. Others are taking it more seriously. But there's just no doubt that it's psychologically affecting everyone in my area, everyone in the country for sure. I'm just directly aware of what's going on around me, and it's weird to see the psychological impacts of the media coverage and the actual virus, because you can tell the way people are living their lives. Even if you go out to the trail and take a hike or take a walk, people's body language is different. There's like a paranoia that is visible, but a warranted one, because, you know, it could be transmitted fairly easily. So it's definitely a game changer. I was thinking the other day that this whole pandemic will probably change things indefinitely. You know, things won't go back to normal, whatever normal is. It won't go back to the way it was anytime soon. I think that economically, psychologically, socially, all these different layers of impact that have happened are going to have lasting effects. Maybe some very positive effects, but certainly a lot of difficulties.
Yeah, and as a species, sort of mirrors like an individual. Anytime you go through a period of crisis, you're always different after. Like, even if you recover from the health issue or fix the financial situation so that whatever the problem or the worry was is entirely gone, life doesn't go back to normal. The experiences change who we are as people. And I think, yeah, that we could have the same thing with this where, even if the long-term effects aren't, like, even if it doesn't ultimately lead to some long economic depression or anything like that, just going through a brief time period of this globally, I think is going to be a profound opportunity for change in either direction. Like, we could really turn into assholes after this and become even more. Well, I guess it's like anything. A crisis reveals to you your shadows. Like, when a problem happens, we all kind of assume our reaction is the natural reaction to that problem. But two different people can be in the same situation and respond very differently depending what shadow work you have to do. Mm-hmm. So with this, if as a society we notice what this causes in us and use it as an opportunity to better understand ourselves and our society, we could go in a very positive direction. But if instead we want to run away from all our fears about this, move into denial, we could move further in a difficult direction as a society.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's going to be all one way or the other. I would surmise that some of us are going to grow in this time and others are going to reach more difficulties and perhaps make things worse than they have to be. But I think a lot of people are just going to struggle regardless of whether or not they're growing psychologically or not, because the fact of the matter is that if the world is in a state of panic or economic catastrophe, it's going to have effects on people regardless of their attitude. Like this whole mentality of you create your own reality, and if you think positively enough, then everything will be flowers and puppy sunshine and rainbows. And it doesn't take much critical thinking to see the problem with that. And one of the reasons that it's a real problem is because Tim Freak points this out, is that if we're all creating our own realities, then that means that we're all creating our own universes and we're somehow still coexisting, which starts to make issues pretty immediately. But the other problem with it is that it's quite an arrogant viewpoint on reality to think that if only you think positively enough, then you can control the universe. I tend to think with more of a sense of humility about that particular topic, and in that your intentions do matter, your thinking does matter. It makes a huge difference, our positive attitudes, and we have boundaries, and the world has fixed structures that may be malleable to a certain extent, but it's also important to maintain a respect for the world around us and the grandness of the universe. It's like, climbing a mountain. If you're like someone who does any intensive hiking, if you're climbing a 14 or something like that, if you don't have respect for the mountain, you're more likely to get injured, you're more likely to make a stupid mistake, you're more likely to get caught up in bad weather and put yourself in a precarious situation. Whereas if you have respect for the mountain, you understand your own limitations, you understand that the mountain is this great, epic pinnacle of nature, and you approach it from this viewpoint of being careful but also courageous, then I think that's the right attitude. So I think that's the right attitude to have towards this situation as well. It's like we might come up against things. For example, I'll give you a very personal, vulnerable example. My personal income is at risk because of this, whatever you want to call it, this crisis, and it makes a real difference in my month-to-month livelihood. I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to figure everything out, and I'm going to keep moving forward. It's just to put in perspective that we need to have a mindfulness and a real compassion for the real crisis that's happening here, and then bring a positive outlook to it to see how we can navigate it.
And I'd like to point out with that, because I think that's something a lot of people are going to be encountering right now, looking that their income might be dropping and not sure about their financial future.
Right.
I liked the way you responded, and I wanted to give an example of how someone else might respond to the same thing differently if they have shadow work to do. So while you're being affected by this, it's not overly affecting you. Like, you didn't call me freaking out about money. You're not falling apart over this stress.
Some people might be.
Yeah.
Well, definitely are. Sorry, I should correct that immediately. Definitely are.
And I think one example of a reason someone else might fall apart in a way you're not is that you don't value yourself based on your bank account.
Well, let me just pause you right there. I want to let you finish this point because I think it's a really good point. But I should just say, because I think it, in my own integrity, it's important. Some people are a lot less privileged than I am and have a much, and I don't mean that in a SJW PC sense. I'm just saying that the reality of the matter is some people can't afford to lose what I can afford to lose.
Yeah. And so the point I was going to make, and yeah, you're making a good point. Some people have it as a greater stress and don't have the same security net.
Yeah.
But still, I think the point's valid that I've never seen in you that you value yourself based on your income. Whereas some other people who struggle for self-worth do value it. It's often the kind of person who has to have an expensive watch, an expensive car, and that when they know they're earning more than someone else, they feel better than them. And when they're making less than someone else, they feel worse. So one reason someone might have, a stronger reaction to the pressure of finances is if they look inward, are they lacking any true sense of self-worth that is separate from what they can give others, what they can buy, and, their finances?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Some people really identify themselves with their financial status or just their career. I mean, it must be very... Peterson talks about how for conscientious people, it just kills them when they're out of a job. I could imagine for a lot of people who are high in trait conscientiousness that are being laid off or forced to stay at home at this point might be very upset about the lack of ability to focus themselves in their work, or they're probably going stir crazy at home trying to find projects to do around the house or something like that. So I could see that as well. I could see for some people who are more introverted and more apt to participate in an isolative environment anyways, I could see some people kind of relieved, not in a sense of like, oh, thank God there's a virus, which would be very insensitive, but relieved that they have some space within their home to just stay to themselves. So I could see a whole mixed bag of reactions.
Yeah, and I think that's because our society doesn't value introspective activities. So if somebody's naturally an introvert, we live in a society that values extroverts and their mode of being more. So we do experience a pressure not to be introverts. Mm-hmm. And for some people who have a strong inclination towards it, but have difficulty going against the grain of society, absolutely there will be a relief of that pressure not being there anymore. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's anything wrong with admitting a good side to a situation for yourself, even if it's difficult for others. Like, it's not that you're saying you're glad others are suffering so you can have this relief. It's just authentic to say, hey, this is horrible. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. But how it's affecting me personally is, maybe I'm worried about my finances, but on the other hand, I feel a sense of relief that I can slow down a little bit in life right now and take some time to myself.
Yeah, it's not black and white. It's like it's okay to feel, if you're someone who feels any sense of, if you're rejoicing at the fact that you can spend more time to yourself or at home, that it's okay to have that response.
And really, it's okay to feel anything. Like,
right.
It's not okay to do anything, but any feeling people are having to this, any emotional reaction, it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think people have a hard time with getting to that level of acceptance of their own emotions. It's so easy to be like, oh my God, it's not okay to feel that. So we suppress it, we push it away, and then it becomes this big monster in the closet waiting to jump out at us at any time when we're not paying attention or we're not forcefully pushing it down enough. And then we have a breakdown or a collapse, or we say a passive aggressive statement to a friend, or whatever it may be. All these different ways that these shadow dynamics kind of seep out of the psyche when we're not paying close attention. It's so important to be able to confront a feeling and to allow it to arise and to actually see what it's like to just be with it. Otherwise, what I just said will be the result. It'll just become a dynamic that gets hidden and causes destruction in your life eventually. So I think that's a huge point, Merc.
Yeah, and I think that's one trap some people can fall into in certain spiritual practices, especially to tie it back to that whole idea of the law of attraction. While I think there's a spiritual lesson there, and that's a component of reality, and there's certain people for whom focusing on the law of attraction is what they need to do at the moment. The trap is overall that you can begin to define, well, an enlightened person wouldn't feel this way, so I can't feel this way. And anytime you're having an emotional reaction and denying it, that's how you cram shit down into the shadows. On the other hand, the payoff, okay, and the difficulty is that to be authentic and honest, even with yourself about what you're feeling, because it's amazing how much we can feel something and deny it at the same time, like totally internal. The short-term payoff is you don't have to feel the deep hurt of all the issues underneath that. That's your short-term payoff. But the long-term payoff to being uncomfortable now is that when you examine those emotions, you can examine why you're having the reaction that you feel is less than enlightened. Then you can deal with the issues beneath that. And then perhaps one day you will no longer feel that emotion. So if there's an emotion or reaction you don't want to have and you react by denying it, you're just going to have it more often. You allow yourself to have it, process why you're having it, then you have a better chance of growing into someone who either doesn't have that reaction or has it less and less.
Absolutely. Less. Yeah, and I think the same goes for positive emotions and experiences. Sometimes people have a hard time letting in a positive experience and actually fully experiencing it. Like, someone gives you a compliment, say, "Hey, Mercury, you're an awesome streamer. I love the way that you can articulate yourself. I love how smart you are." And then you say, "Oh no, that's nothing. You should see this other guy's channel," or you deflect away from it. And that's actually been propped up in some circles in our society as a value. Somebody who's like stoic and they don't take a compliment, they ignore compliments. There's like, it's honorable to not take a compliment. And I can see where that position comes from, but at the same time, there's also something really important about being able to feel something that comes in and sit with it and actually let it fill up your body and be like, oh wow, I just, like, what does it feel like in this moment to be told that I'm good at something, and to actually say thank you and to, make some sort of, acknowledgement of that compliment. It doesn't mean you have to be arrogant and be like, oh yeah, you're right, I'm amazing. But, or you could say that too. I mean, it's just up to you. But the point is that I think that sometimes people deflect away from the positive because they're so used to that negative voice inside them that's beating up on them or telling them they're not enough. And that's kind of the default state. And so they just go right back to that. That's the comfort zone. It's not comfortable to explore positive emotion, which is kind of ironic because these are the same people who are constantly complaining about, oh, I never feel good enough and my life's not good and why can't things be better for me? And, but the fact is that they're not choosing to engage. They're not choosing to engage the life that would actually be better for them. They're actively suppressing it.
Yeah, absolutely. What goes into the shadow isn't always the bad shit about ourselves. It's anything we repress. And yeah, that's the idea of the golden shadow. Yes. We also suppress things that are too good for our self-identity.
Yes, exactly.
Some people
Exactly.
will lock away amazing talents as well. Like there's
Yes.
people out there that have amazing artistic talent, but because perhaps their parents, didn't reward that, it was boys should be out playing sports. They suppress the talent and it moves down into the shadows. Or the
Exactly.
reverse. Someone may be a natural athlete, but they don't believe they are because they've suppressed it because their parents were intellectuals and that was the only thing rewarded.
Right. Gloff had an interesting comment here. The cult of positivity is a thing. I'm not quite sure if I take your meaning correctly, but what that brings up for me is that there is also a such thing as forced positivity, or you know always being positive, never acknowledging. That's the same thing that we were just talking about. You know, oh no, I'm fine, I'm happy, I'm great. When really you're fucking pissed or you're angry or whatever, sad. That's just as much that's what Merck's talking about here. That's just as much of a problem as anything that we turn away from in a suppressive manner has the consequence of potentially becoming a toxic emotion, or a toxic shadow dynamic in the long run. On the other hand, anything that we can turn towards with a sense of presence and mindfulness and I got this, and small baby steps, even if it's uncomfortable, and it's okay to dip your toes in the water and get freaked out and be like, okay, I did enough for today, but you're still making steps towards going into your discomfort and leaning into your pain and leaning into whatever it is that you're having a hard time leaning into. That's the key. Gloff says Gary Vee is the leader of the cult of positivity. Well, I would say I have no I have no problem with Gary Vee per se. I mean, I agree with some of the things he says. I disagree with others. But one of the things about the whole New Age movement, the whole self-help movement, let's say, self-help in general, is it has a tendency of putting out these empty positive messages that when you actually look at them, they're not sustainable over the long term, and they don't acknowledge the fullness of human existence, and they don't acknowledge the actual reality of how people become successful and the multifaceted way that people got there. I've heard it said that, it's easy if you're a millionaire to look back on your success and say, well, I thought positively, I did this every day, and that's why I'm successful. But in some ways, that's also a post hoc rationalization. You're coming up with reasons after the fact, and the reasons that suit your intentions for speaking in the moment, but they're not necessarily the full reason for your success. There's multiple things that go into it that are more than just, I woke up and I put this thing on my vision board and then it came true the next day. And I'm not discounting the value of that stuff. I think those things are really, those things have been proven to really help program our brains. So if we think in these positive ways, if we create imagery of our goals, if we really focus on that on a daily ritual and pour ourselves into it, we are more likely to find those opportunities. And that's just simple brain science, because you're going to see what you focus on. You're going to see the opportunities that you've programmed yourself to see. And if you've programmed yourself that I'm a piece of shit, or I'm not good enough, or I can't be successful, then you're going to miss all the opportunities that walk by you on the street every day, or that you see wherever you are. On the other hand, if you have a program running that says I'm successful and I've got this, I can do this, then you're more likely to see the things that would assist you along the way. But on the other hand, it's not as simple as that. There's also random factors of luck, or good genetics, where you're able to be very good in a specific area of skill or whatever. I mean, it's a very complicated issue how people become successful.
Yeah, and I think there's sort of two modes of looking at life. So on the one extreme polarity would be the law of attraction, sort of cult of positivity and manifestation. On the other hand, you would have more the idea of like fate and living your purpose, where, on the far end, it's you give up all desire to make choices and you accept that you're a part of this, universe or plan or fate. And I think neither of those modalities are complete unto themselves. Reality is beyond us. And I do think there's a place for the cult of positivity. There are certain people who feel powerless, who know all the other end, and they need to spend some time in a cult of personality, learn how, like, to focus on reality as if the law of attraction is the totality for a time period. But that's just for a certain phase, and that's clearly not everything.
Right.
Oh, and the other thing I just wanted to say, if people were listening to, earlier when we were talking about how to sort of be more authentic and get shit out of the shadow, 2 simple Peterson rules to follow to like lead you on that are the tell the truth or at least don't lie. So if you want to get moving on this, start by not lying to yourself and preferably also others. So that's where you stop denying feelings. And then when this gets hard to acknowledge what's in us, keep in mind the rule of compare yourself to who you were before, not to someone else. So if you've got a lot of jealousy in you and that's embarrassing, you've been, denying it, be honest, admit it. And then from here forward, examine yourself to how jealous you were before so that you can see your progress. Don't compare yourself to some person who has no jealousy at all.
Yeah, that's great advice. I love that. Yeah, I've also heard the New Age spin on the multiple worlds theory, where you are essentially creating whatever. It's not you're not creating the world you live in. You're choosing one of multiple worlds. So you're just living in a world right now where coronavirus is real because of your negative thinking. Yeah. And there's a universe out there somewhere where people are not creating this negative virus that you've created in your mind. God, I mean, what a long way to go to falsify that one. I mean, it's not helpful in my estimation. It's not a helpful statement to make. It's like, well, this is the world that I'm in. So, regardless of whether or not I could or couldn't be in it, I'm in it now. And I've seen no proof to show me that if I meditated harder or if I had a bigger smile on my face that I would be transported to another. I could be wrong about that, but I don't have enough evidence to make that leap. And so it's just the things that people come up with in order to justify their beliefs.
I could still imagine a scenario where believing in that for a while would help you progress. So, for instance, someone may have it so ingrained into them that this world is bad, it can never get better, where a step towards imagining this world could be better has to be metaphysical like that. It's just so deep that this world can't change that it's easier for them to shift to a belief of maybe I could imagine someone where that actually seems more realistic to them. They're like, I could shift to a different dimension that's good. Okay, that's more believable to me.
And maybe it's true. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't have good reason to believe it's true, but I don't know for any fact that it is or isn't true. But I do think that more often than not, people don't have a good reason to believe that it's true, and they still do it anyway. But it's okay. I'm a very spiritually minded guy as far as like what I believe about the human soul and the proposition of a greater metaphysical reality where all things are connected and nothing is ever what it seems. I think that it's a great mystery. I think that's the way to look at it, in my opinion, that's why I love how a lot of the Native American tribes called it the Great Spirit or the Great Mystery. Like, that's how I have reverence for the Creator. It's the Great Mystery. I don't know how it works. I'm not that. I don't understand it. It's bigger than me. All I know is I am a small speck in relationship to the whole. And that to me is like a spiritual phenomena. That gets me a sense of connection and deepening, and who knows what's possible. What bothers me is when people make statements that go beyond that they do know, right? Like, how do you know that there's multiple worlds, that you've chosen one? Are you saying that because you've experienced it? Or are you saying that because it feels good intuitively? Like the Jonathan Haidt thing where thinking based on our intuitions. We're rationalizing based on things that we want to be true because they feel nice. I just prefer a more phenomenological honesty about what we actually know and don't, I suppose.
But for some people, I think because it's difficult to, as much as there's such a beauty in that mystery, I totally know what you're talking about. You can learn to experience reality, whatever reality is to you, whether it has a God or not. But if God's part of your reality, if you can experience all of that as a mystery, just a beautiful experience once you get into it. But to get there, you have to lose the safety of certainty. You have to step out and get used. Like, we don't like not knowing.
Yes.
And that's the fun of a mystery. So it takes time to transition to that. And I would even take it one further. It's not just God that's a mystery to me. It's not just the universe. I am a mystery to myself.
Yes. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah. I don't know what the fuck is inside me. I've got potentials that I don't know. I mean, also, I don't know how my pancreas works on that level. I don't know what microorganisms live in me. Right. I don't know where my thoughts come from. I don't know where my emotions come from. As much as I've done lots of shadow work and brought lots out, I have no idea what else the fuck is down there.
You just know what you're experiencing.
Absolutely. And it's all a profound mystery, which
I love
is
that.
Scary, but when you embrace it, it becomes thrilling and beautiful.
Yes. Yeah, I love that's my favorite. That's my favorite attitude towards spirituality. It's so it's like an earnest seeking, and I've experienced so many synchronicities in my life where I'm just blown away by the meaning of things and how the universe can line things up sometimes, and I have a strong connection to whatever that force is that of causality or whatever that is that drives this deeper meaning. And that's the beauty, is that it's dimly portrayed as a teasing force of light and love, and it's like I can't make it out quite distinctly. It's like that biblical line, first we shall see dimly, then we shall see more distinctly. It's more beautiful than that, the line itself, but it's something along those lines. And there's something about just following that dim light that we can barely make out, that to me is like a sign of an earnest seeker. It's like you're following that sense that you have, that little radar that you feel inside of yourself. Grizz asked, why does it bother me when people make those proclamations? Well, I think there's a couple levels. I think one is that the subpersonality inside of me that likes to argue, likes to find things to argue with. And so I enjoy being bothered, as weird as that sounds. I'm getting something out of my active bothering myself. So I'm bothering myself, and I'm responsible for that. The other reason is that, and this one's a little more altruistic perhaps, is that I think if somebody makes claims that are arrogantly put forth as the end of all ends, the truth of all truths, it's almost like a God complex. Like, okay, so you have a corner on reality now, or you know how everything works, or you know where the Akashic record is, or you know all the past lives. And sure, maybe some people who are mystics and shaman and enlightened folks that may or may not exist out there have access to this data. And if they have access to this data, then I would say they have good phenomenological reasons for putting it forth as a statement. It's like, I've seen the Akashic records. Okay, great. You've seen them. That's fantastic. I haven't seen them. but you've seen them. So that's, what I can talk about. So I always just talk about what I've experienced. If I tell you I had a soulful experience, it's because I felt whatever it is inside of me that I call my soul. If I tell you I experienced a synchronicity, it's because I experienced a synchronicity. If I tell you that I had a vision, it's because I had a vision. It's based on an honesty that I know from my own experience. And that's what I prefer. I prefer that type of teaching, rather than teaching based on conjecture or putting it forth when you didn't have the experience. Now, on the other hand, there are intellectual pursuits like talking about philosophy or mathematics or whatever. Did you experience E equals MC squared? Well, no, I didn't experience that. But to me, that's a different categorical area than talking about spirituality and metaphysical, the base metaphysics of reality. I think there's a big difference there between those two levels of discussion.
Also, even though you haven't experienced E equals MC squared,
right?
The people who put it forward and that you're learning from have experienced it. Like, that formula has been used to do something. So scientists have experienced E equals MC squared by working with the technology.
Very good point.
Of course, making it. Also, when it comes to, because there's the shit you can prove and there's the shit you can't. Like, often between Peterson and Harris, Peterson sort of has that problem of he's trying to defend things that are not provable. Or actually, Harris encountered it with Dawkins. Because when he tried to explain some of his experiences he's had with mindfulness to Dawkins, it sounded like bullshit to Dawkins.
Yes, I remember. I really enjoyed watching that podcast or listening.
Couldn't experience it. So Sam found himself in the position that Jordan is often in with Sam, where Sam's experiencing something he knows to be real, but can't offer the kind of proof that he's asking for Jordan to provide. And it brings to mind, I recently saw a clip of Peterson being asked about ayahuasca or something and about like delusions. And he talked about how do we tell if something's a delusion or not. So for your example of that so-called guru who tells you they've experienced the Akashic records, it's like, how do we know what's real? And to get in sort of the way Jonathan Pageau and Jordan Peterson look at real. And he made an interesting point. He said, like, obviously there's the first way we go of, you check with other people if they're experiencing it. And if only you're experiencing it, maybe it's a delusion. But he said on the other level, when it comes to like a vision in ayahuasca or something, that he says, if you act on it, does it make things better or worse? So if somebody comes to you and says, I met an angel 5 years ago, and they can't prove in the normal way, no one else experienced it. One tool to sort of feel out for truth or not is, okay, well, when you started acting on what this delusion told you, did life get better or worse? And so someone comes to you and says they have access to the Akashic record, and you see them lying and, all this other shitty stuff, and their life is not admirable, then perhaps that wasn't real. But if someone comes to you and says they had a connection to God 5 years ago, and you see that they've become a better person in those 5 years, then maybe we should be careful about defining that delusion as not real.
Yes, that's beautiful. And I think that points to the importance of functionality. Does the experienced function in your life in a way that's practical and pragmatic, and so it enhances your life.
Yeah, and so if someone's claiming to be more enlightened than everyone else or have some sort of knowledge no one else has,
which is to me is just ridiculous, but
But if they have it, they shouldn't be bitching at the world then. They should be like a benevolent parent, just letting us all make the mistakes, and they're going to just do great work without looking down on us.
But just a quick point here is if somebody actually did have that level of enlightenment, to me, touting it as like a point to be bragged about would be silly. Like I would think that somebody who's that omnipotent would allow some compassion for people's ignorance and would almost probably keep it secretive as possible, and just let things happen as they may and let things flow as they may and help people quietly or without trying to take a lot of credit. So I think I just think that's an important side point to make there.
Yeah, it's the same thing with like geniuses. Geniuses don't walk around telling people they're geniuses. They do what they're doing, and other people go, "Oh shit, that's a genius."
Right.
And often, again, not to put down anyone out there who's claiming to have made spiritual progress and is helping people. Some people are genuinely doing that. But
yes,
really, I agree with you. That ultimate level, if somebody's really fucking full blown, enlightened, and they're still here in a body, they're most likely doing something very, very normal.
Yes.
And nobody would have any idea.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, I don't know if I want to jump into this, but
I've got a, if you don't mind, I've got another little tangent to add to all this.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so some of you might be thinking, based on what I've said, that I'm against religion or something because it props up these belief structures that can't be falsified. That's not what I'm saying. I don't have problem with belief structures. I don't have a problem with these ideas in and of themselves. I have a problem with people who separate experience from concept. And so what I would say is, like, if you're a Christian, if you're Jewish, Sufi, whatever it is, I just would hope that whatever it is that you believe in, you make it a part of your lived experience. I communicate with the Trinity. I feel that sense in my life. I pray to Christ. I have a phenomenological relationship with the beliefs that I espouse. That to me is what's important. It's not that you can't have beliefs or you can't have structures that help you navigate your universe that aren't based directly in phenomenology. It's just that I would hope for myself and for others that we would attempt to connect direct experience to belief. And that, to me, that's the beauty. That's the beauty of being on a path of individuation, is that we're not just taking ideas on face value. We're actually trying to experience them to see how real they are, how much they can be integrated into our consciousness. So I would say, live the hell out of your life philosophy. Just make it real for you. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not putting down anyone's beliefs. I'm just saying make it a lived experience. Test it. Put it up to the test of experience and see what happens. And then that'll put you through the fires of self-realization. And then you'll come out of it either enhancing that belief structure or discarding it because it didn't work. And to me, that's the way to go.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that. My brain went quiet for a minute.
No problem. We've got some comments here. Let's see. James, welcome. We're glad you're here.
Hey, James.
Gloff says the sacred mystery is a response to the Great Spirit, I was thinking. Daniel says, I personally take New Age views with a grain of salt. Self-help could look simplistic for certain people. Yeah. I love that quote by Les Brown, Daniel says. Program yourself or your life will program you. I love that. That's beautiful. Yes, put intention and take control over your consciousness, or else it'll just go on automatic. That's really good. Anything you'd add to that, Merc? Just going to keep looking through here.
Yeah, sorry, that's just the mixed state thing. I put out a lot of mental energy for a while there, and I flipped down, like, my brain's just really fucking quiet at the moment.
It's cool, man. Anytime you need to do that, that's fine.
Yeah, it could flip back on at any point.
Okay, here's a story from Gloff. 7 years ago, a buddy of mine and I went to a music festival and ingested some substances. On Sunday, my friend dropped acid and then pissed me off, so I ditched him. We relinked, and he wasn't having the best time. But he and I had a long talk, and he had some sort of ego death and realization. Afterward, he started coming down. We went to my car and smoked weed to smoke weed. My car was a mess, and he told me to clean it. And he said something like, "I'm egoless, Gloff. Clean your car." And I started making fun of him because the phrase "I'm egoless" is ridiculous. He's a fighter, and he got up in my face saying he was going to beat the shit out of me. And we both calmed down. And he was like, "You know, Gloff, I think we've just spent a lot of time and taken a lot of drugs together. Let's just chill." So it's kind of funny when you take enlightenment claims plus ego. Oh my God, that is such a fantastic story. Oh my God. That is some grade A humor. Oh. Yeah, I always joke, like, I'll say, like, you know, I'm the most humble person around. I'm the humblest motherfucker out there. Oh, gosh. Well, that's good. Man. And then just the fact that he got up in your face afterward, that's even funnier. It's like, "I'm egoless, goddammit. You want to fight about it?" Let me prove to you how egoless I am by kicking the shit out of you.
Yeah, drugs can be chaotic fun.
That is classic. Well, I've got a call with none other than the great Andrew, who started this channel, coming up in 5 minutes. Gloff says, "We're still friends, by the way." He's a cool guy. Well, thank you for allowing us to laugh at your friend's expense for even just a minute, and I'm glad he's a good guy.
Yeah, that was awesome.
We can't judge him for, you know, one of his transgressions when he was under the influence. I'm sure he has lots of other great traits to be judged by. So, yeah. I don't have anything else really to say other than, yeah, I just feel like, here's the thing. I don't know I don't have any more of a corner on truth than the next guy. So when I'm getting pissy about an idea, just know I'm just thinking. I'm not making any absolute statements. I'm not putting forth a complete philosophy of life. I'm not saying this is the way it is or isn't. It's just me getting riled up thinking about something and enjoying the process. So, if ever you should have an idea that runs contrary to mine, never be afraid to share it. I'd like to know. I think that's an important dialectical tension that we need to keep in honest conversations where, "Hey, I actually see a hole in this area, Ryan," or "What about this?" I encourage you all to do that. And I reserve the right to change my mind about anything at any given moment. So don't expect me to be the same guy tomorrow.
Yeah, well put. I agree with all of that.
I love you all. Love you, Merc. We'll be around. Do you want to keep streaming, or do you want to sign off with me?
No, fuck it. I'll sign off with you, and maybe I'll pop on again later today or someday soon.
Okay.
So long as quarantine's on, I'll do my best to provide some cabin fever relief.
Sweet.
Yeah, I know that for anyone who's watched us long enough, eventually your brain neurologically starts reacting to our faces in the same way you react when a friend visits. So if I can, I'll try to pop on more often so that people who are feeling lonely and locked away will get the virtual sensation of someone stopping by to see them.
No doubt. Absolutely, Merc. Well, it's always a pleasure doing this with you. We got to do it more often. Now that this whole quarantine thing's going down, perhaps we'll be able to find more time. of course, you've already quarantined yourself for a while. It's been your life.
Decade ago.
What's that?
I said I quarantined myself a decade
You're
ago.
right, yes. So you actually are an expert on being self-quarantined. You should be consulting the nation right now.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
You're all the best. Thank you for tuning in, sorting myself out. Do the things where you click those buttons that help us. I think you know which buttons we're talking about. And this is just a fun time. We got to do this again. I have too much fun when I come on here.
All right, then let's just do it again soon.